Whole sports all plays. Yeah. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making up plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports all plays.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Gonzo and the Judge Sports Talk Monday, November 7th, 2022. Got a lot going on. Been watching Monday Night Football. The Ravens got a big win over the Saints. Kind of sucks there ain't no baseball on no more. World Series ended on Saturday. But joined by the sports judge, Jonathan Mathis, like always. How's it going, Jonathan?
What's going on, Gonzo? How are you feeling on this Monday, November 7th? Happy to be here, as always. What couldn't be better than talking sports? Always fun to be on, my friend. And we have our good friend with us today, stat guy Dustin. It's always a pleasure to be joined by him as well. Let's get this show started, man, because we got a lot to unpack tonight. There's a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah, we got Dustin with us as well. He'll be popping in and out because he's doing double duty while he's at work. Well, let's touch on the World Series real quick, because last time we talked was on Friday. And we were going into Game 6 of the World Series. Of course, Houston ended up winning Game 6. I'm not saying that the Phillies would have won the game, but I think Thompson made a mistake by pulling Wheeler when he did. I mean, you only throw 70 pitches. I understand he was facing the lineup for the third time. He was going to face Alvarez for the third time, which he'd already struck out twice. But you bring in a guy out of the bullpen who you've used the last couple of nights in Alvarado, and Alvarez hits a shot to take the lead, a 3-run homer, take the lead, and then they just couldn't get back in, and couldn't get back even after that. Did you think Thompson was making a mistake taking him out too early?
Yeah, I think he did pull him too early. I think you let him go a little bit longer. You see what he can give you, and you let him pitch deeper into the innings. You know, but hey, you know what, Chris? That's what we see in baseball nowadays. I mean, it's commonplace now to see a pitcher get pulled from a game earlier than expected. That's just the modern day baseball now. That's how baseball is played. These managers, you know, refuse to toss their computers to the side. You know, they rely so much on analytics now. You know, and I'm not saying that's how Rob Thompson is, but yes, he should have stuck with Zach Wheeler a little bit longer. You know, let him go deeper into the game, see how far he can take you. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. You bring on Jose Alvarado, and who comes up to the plate? Jordan Alvarez, and he delivers a 3-run home run that basically put the game away for the Houston Astros and clinched their World Series championship. But yes, to your point, I think Rob Thompson should have left him in the game. Let him pitch. Let him do his thing. He was dominant. He looked good on the mound. He was solid. He had his stuff. You know, things were going good for the Phillies. Leave him in. Let him protect the lead, before you decide to go to your bullpen. And he didn't look like he was in any signs of trouble either. So you keep him in the game.
No, he only gave up a single. He gave up a single that inning. He did hit. He
Right.
hit Montero, but Montero was pretty close to being over the plate. But I mean, yeah, I'd like to see him at least give him another batter. In the regular season, I can understand it a little more, but when you're in the World Series like that, especially a winner go home game.
All hands on deck. Yeah.
I just don't
All
think you
hands
take a
on
guy
deck.
out that had been pretty much rolling the whole night, and he'd only
Right.
thrown around 70 pitches.
Right.
Stat guy, what'd you think about him pulling him with only throwing 70 pitches?
I don't think he made a mistake pulling him at 77 pitches. I think he made a mistake by not starting him in Game 5.
Well, that too. I think he made a mistake by not.
You have a guy that made 3 postseason starts at home and only gave up 1 unearned run in 20 innings in those 3 postseason starts. And you had Game 5 in your own ballpark with a chance to head back to Houston up 3-2. You start Wheeler in Game 5, there's a good chance that Philadelphia wins that game. And then there's a good chance that we see a Game 7 on Sunday, because it wouldn't have mattered who Philadelphia started in Game 6, I don't think, because I think Houston would have won Game 6 regardless. Then you have a chance to go with Ranger Suarez and Aaron Nola both ready to go in Game 7.
No, I agree.
I agree.
Me and you had talked about that on the baseball or baseball show Friday morning about we thought they should have started him in Game 5. But yeah, I just felt like, man, I was watching that game. As soon as he took him out, I told my dad, I was like, "That's a mistake. Let him face him. He's had no success against him tonight. Let's see what happens." But it's easy to sit here and say it's a mistake after the fact too, which I thought was a mistake before I saw the results. But still, even that, it's easy to say after you see the results as well. All right, Jonathan, we had a wild weekend in the NFL. Had some upsets. You had the Bills fall. Had some surprises with the Bills falling to the Jets. Trying to think, there was another team that I was kind of surprised that lost. Colts got killed like they had been. They got embarrassed. That like that video you were showing earlier that you had put together that resulted in Frank Reich being gone. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But you had the Bills fall. Oh, excuse me. Well, what was the biggest surprise to you for week 9 in the NFL?
Even though the Packers have played like trash this year, the Lions being able to stop the Packers was a big surprise to me. The Lions haven't been able to stop anybody all year. Yes, they have been able to put up points, but as far as stopping opponents, they have not been very successful. This win bolster their confidence and puts them in the wins column. It was a big win for the Detroit Lions. On the other hand, it was a huge loss. Ended the Packers season. The Packers are basically done. I mean, the season is not salvageable at this point. It's done for them. They needed to win this game. That game was pivotal for them moving forward, because have you looked at their schedule and how brutal their schedule is in the coming weeks? You got the Cowboys, you got the Titans, and you got the Eagles. Yeah, good luck with that one. But to me, it was what the Detroit Lions were able to do. This is a team that was coming off of a fifth straight loss. And I mean, the Lions just took it to the Packers, was able to come away with the victory. That's a big surprise to me. And then the Jets was a big surprise as well. The Jets defense has turned it up a notch. They are more confident in themselves. Sauce Gardner has done his thing in the secondary. He's good at man-to-man coverage. He can lock down his wide receiver, make it difficult for his wide receiver. We've seen that with him. Zach Wilson brings a spark to that offense, and the Jets have continued to improve each week. You can see that that defense frustrated Josh Allen. They held the Bills. They didn't really allow them to score a lot of points. Didn't really let them pile up the scoreboard. And the Jets defense, man, you saw it. You saw Quentin Williams flying all over the field. Their defensive guys were making plays. CJ Mosley out there doing his thing. So yeah, the Jets, that was also a big surprise as well. The Jets look good. You can see that they have set the standard for what the future could look like in New York. And the Jets are not far away. They're not far away from being a playoff contender. They look like a team that's very promising and can be in it for the long haul in the future.
Yeah, that game was surprised me. I mean, I thought the Jets could compete, but I didn't think the Jets would have enough offense to be able to pull out the win against the Bills. Jets defense is looking tough, and like that guy just said in the private comments is that in the private chat that the Bills could be in trouble because Josh Allen's status for Sunday is up in the air right now, depending on what this MRI comes that'll be interesting. The the Packers getting beat by the Lions didn't surprise me a whole lot. I thought the Lions had a good chance of winning that game, especially because the Lions were getting healthy, starting to get some of their weapons back. And if you saw when the Lions are healthy, they've had one of the higher scoring offenses in the league. Their defense just hasn't been able to stop anybody. But you really don't have to worry about your defense as much when you're playing the Packers this year because their offense has been struggling all season. You said the Packers are done. I think the Packers have been done for basically since the season started. They just don't have the weapons on offense. And Rodgers didn't play. Not that he's played great all season, but he didn't play well at all yesterday. He threw 3 interceptions, if I remember correctly. I know he had at least 2, but I'm thinking it was 3.
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I was listening to
Aaron Rodgers had 2 interceptions in the red zone, which is uncharacteristic.
He had 3 interceptions in the red zone.
Oh God! I didn't know.
I thought it was 3. I was listening to that game some on the radio, but I didn't get to watch a whole lot.
The first 2 were like the one was off the helmet, and then the other one was when he underthrew Bakhtiari, and then the third one he tries to throw in a triple coverage over the middle of the field.
Wow! I know that guy is frustrated. I know that guy. I know that guy is frustrated.
Mike, I'll sign him, but you're going to have to come here to Indiana. I'm not coming all the way to Chicago to sign him.
But you can see it with Aaron Rodgers' body language that he is exhausted, that he is frustrated, and he's completely over this season. Like he's done with this season. He could literally start vacation now. That's how tired he is. And more than anything, he doesn't have that go-to receiver that he can trust.
Yeah.
Well, I said this the other day too. The Packers are 3-6 right now. If they win out, they would go 11-6, and all Minnesota would have to do at that point is win 2 of their last 8 games to win the division. But looking at the Packers' next 3 games with Philadelphia, Dallas, and Tennessee, I'm not going to say they go 0-3 because I think they can beat Tennessee on Thursday night. But even if they go 1-2, you're sitting at 4-8. At that point, do you just say screw it and start Jordan Love the rest of the way?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that is a good question.
Maybe because especially if you think Rodgers is going to retire. If you think Rodgers is going to retire and not be back, you might as well see what you have from what you got in Jordan Love.
It's not only that though. It's Minnesota right now. It's 7-1. If they lose the Buffalo and go to 7-2, they have 2 very winnable games after Buffalo where they can go to 9-2. If the Packers are sitting at 4-8 and Minnesota's sitting at 9-2. I mean, the Packers at that point, there's no shot at them winning the division.
No.
And theoretically, there's probably no shot at them making the playoffs. So instead of trotting Rodgers out there every week to either get the shit kicked out of him or play like crap, why not see what you got in Jordan Love? He's going to be in the 4th year of his contract next year, which is the final year of his rookie deal. You need to figure out if he's your guy going forward if Rodgers leaves.
Yeah. No, I agree. They're going to have to find that out, especially because I don't think Rodgers is going to be back next year. But
No, Rodgers.
either way, like you're saying, they need to find that out before, because either you got to sign him or you're going to have to get move on and get a different quarterback if you don't think Love is your guy. Go ahead, Judge.
No, he's out. I think this is the end of Aaron Rodgers. I think we may have seen the last of Aaron Rodgers. I truly believe that he's going to retire from the game of football. I think he's just mentally and physically, he is done.
Well, he don't have a whole lot of options. He either has to play for the Packers because he signed that. He has a couple more years, doesn't he?
It's like I said on the afternoon show, Chris. The Packers are screwed in this situation. You either have an underperforming Aaron Rodgers who you're stuck with the next 3 years. You have an Aaron Rodgers who, if he retires, you still have to pay him $60 million the next 2 years, which takes a huge hit on your salary cap. Aaron Rodgers has the Packers by the neck because of the contract they gave him, and Green Bay is screwed whether they keep him or whether they get rid of him.
Yeah.
The best thing they're going to be able to try to do is put some more weapons on that offense, try to get that offense going for next year if he's going to be back, because he has 2 or 3 years left on his deal, but I don't unless they do make some changes on offense. I just don't see Rodgers coming back.
I don't even think it's that anymore. You can see it in Devontae Adams. You can see it in Zadarius Smith in Minnesota, which is still the funniest thing in the world. How he's in Minnesota now on a 3-year, $52 million deal. Minnesota's only paying him $3.5 million this year, and the Packers are paying him $11 million. So the Packers are basically paying Zadarius Smith to have success in Minnesota at this point, which is funny. But Zadarius Smith and Devontae Adams have proven that a lot of the Packers are sick of Aaron Rodgers, because Adams got offered more money than the Raiders gave him and still chose to leave. Zadarius Smith got offered the same kind of contract that the Vikings gave him, and yet he chose to leave because they don't want to play with Rodgers anymore.
Right.
See, with Adams, I think it was more that he didn't know how long Rodgers was going to be there, is why I thought he left. My dad says Buffalo and Kansas City not being able to run the football could be a big problem. It could end up being a big problem as you get closer to the playoffs, especially the Bills, or even Kansas City. Kansas City almost got beat last night by a team that couldn't throw the ball hardly at all last night. Willis I think he completed 5 or 6 passes on the game. But that Titans defense played their ass off last night, man. That Titans defense played real well.
And Derrick Henry was flying all over the field with his speed and his stamina.
Yeah. But that didn't surprise me. Henry's been getting going here last few games or so. He got off to a little bit of a slow start to the season, but after that, he's been running the ball well.
Yeah, to piggyback off of what you guys are saying too, I don't think there's any game this weekend that surprised me at all. And the reason why I say that is, look at college football this year and look at the NFL this year. The season's been a season of surprises since week 1. Teams that typically suck are the ones leading the playoff race right now. Teams that are typically playoff contenders are at the bottom of the league right now. The NFL and the NCAA since week 1 this year have been nothing but a surprise to everybody, which is why I think a lot of people have enjoyed watching football this year, because it's so much more fun this year than in the past because you have so much more parity. So a lot of the games this weekend, I wasn't surprised with any of the results, because each week it's like you never know what's going to happen until it happens.
Oh, yeah, and me and Dad were talking about this earlier, especially with college football. I thought it would take a little bit longer. I thought it'd be maybe 3 or 4 years, 4 or 5 years after the NIL went in effect, that you was going to see a lot more parity in college football, because it's going to be harder for some of these big schools to stack up 4 or 5 deep on these 4 and 5 star recruits.
And you have to add in the transfer portal now.
And the transfer
portal has officially become free agency of NCAA.
Yeah, between the transfer portal and then now the NIL, I mean, these guys can go other places and get to play and and you can still make money. So, yeah, transfer portal has been a big thing, because you look how many players you see move from school to school each year.
It helped USC a lot.
Yeah, and in the past too, if you were in the transfer portal, you had to sit a year after transferring. They've thrown that out the window now. So now you have
Yep.
USC who got Caleb Williams, and they got that Jordan Addison from Pittsburgh, who was the Biletnikoff winner last year, who led the nation in wide receiver yards. On a typical transfer portal rules, they wouldn't have even been able to play this year at USC. But now you get rid of that rule. You add the best receiver in the country in Addison, a top 3 quarterback in the country in Caleb Williams, and now you have an offense that you can build around in USC, which is why they're in the position they're in.
Speaking
Exactly.
speaking of USC, do you think that Lincoln Riley will be able to get that defense built up where he can make USC a contender? I mean, that was his one knocking out in Oklahoma was he could never get get that defense right.
I don't think he has to, because outside of Utah and Oregon, there's really not a dominant team in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
So as long as
the Pac-12, I mean, like
as long as he can win the Pac-12, you're going to put yourself in position to be in the college football playoff.
Yeah, but I mean,
So,
contend with them other teams.
Yeah,
in the
that's true.
college
But
football playoff.
when you face another powerhouse in the college football playoff, your defense is gonna have to be top notch. But I don't know. Like I'm with Dustin. He doesn't really have to, worry about the defense too much because the offense is doing what it's got to do. The offense is putting up enough points, and in college football, it's more about what your offense can do. People like to see these high flying offenses, and people are entertained by a team that can score a lot of points, and that's what USC does. They have a stud at the quarterback position now in Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams has transferred to USC and has made an immediate impact at USC. Then you have Jordan Addison. He's another one who has been a factor for them this season. Travis Dye running the football tremendously well. So they got the playmakers on offense. But yeah, the defense has a lot of question marks. And the thing with the defense, though, that makes USC's defense so interesting is that they don't always necessarily get the stops they need, but they can force the turnovers and give the ball back to the offense. That's what the defense has done so well. But I don't know. Lincoln Riley is not a defensive specialist. He's more of a guy who cares more about the offense and puts more of his focus and emphasis on what the offense can do. And that's what we've seen at Oklahoma, and that's what we've seen so far at USC.
Yeah, the difference between college football and the NFL, when you get to the playoffs in the NFL, it's typically the best defense that always wins. You look at the Super Bowl last year, the Rams had the best defense, which is why they were able to stop Cincinnati's offense.
Mm-hmm.
Year before that, Tampa Bay had the better defense than Kansas City, which was why they were able to stop Kansas City. Year before that, I mean, it was San Francisco and Kansas City. Kansas City won that year, but I don't think anyone was going to stop Kansas City that year anyways. But in college football, it's the exact opposite. You can have a great defense. Alabama Crimson Tide has a great defense, and no one's going to say they don't. But then you have a team like Tennessee that hung 54 on them. Tennessee's had a pretty good defense all year, and now Georgia just dismantles them on Saturday. In college football, whatever team has the more explosive offense, they have a chance to go farther just because they don't care if they outscore you. They know that if they can't be stopped on offense, it doesn't matter how poorly their defense is playing, and that's kind of the philosophy that Lincoln Riley's always had since he's been at Oklahoma. He's had teams that would typically score 45, 50 points a game. He didn't care if they were giving up 35, 40 because there wasn't too many teams in the country that were going to keep up with him offensively wise. Pac-12, they're scoring 45 points a game. Outside of Oregon, there's not another team in the Pac-12 that's going to score 45 points. Utah's a good team, but Utah's a defensive-minded team that's going to score 25 to 30 points and hold you under 20. But outside of Oregon, there's not a team that can compete with USC offensively wise, so I don't think Riley really cares about defense at this point. But when he gets to the Big Ten and has to face teams like Ohio State and Michigan and Wisconsin, that's when you're going to have to see him start to improve that defense because those teams in the Big Ten have a defense, and those teams in the Big Ten know how to slow down a high-powered offense.
Yeah. In the Big Ten, he's definitely going to have a defense. That's for sure. Because, I mean, you get teams like, look at Penn State. They're not great offensively, but they got that defense where they can slow some offenses down and be in games.
Look at Iowa, for example. Iowa's only scoring 17 points per game on offense. but they're allowing 11 points per game on defense, and they're sitting at 6-4 because their defense keeps them in the game.
Yep. No, that's 100%. You're muted, John.
Yeah, their defense, Iowa's defense does keep them in the game. That's why a lot of their games have been so close and competitive.
I think they said of their 10 games, 7 of them, Iowa's held their opponents under 10 points. Granted, they've lost 3 of those games because Iowa can't score. But if you have a good enough defense that keeps games like 13-10, 10-7, things like that, you don't really need an offense. USC's got kind of an offense like Ohio State where they're going to score a lot of points, but the one difference is Ohio State also has a great defense. Michigan also has a great defense where their games are going to be 40-10. USC needs to, I think, next year, they need to start kind of evolving themselves a little bit more to get a better defense before they get into the Big Ten.
Right. Ohio State, you can make the argument that Ohio State's the most complete team in the Big Ten. No question about it. But Michigan may have something to say about that too.
I'm not putting a lot of stock into that game from this weekend, mainly because the weather in Rutgers was a lot better than the weather in Northwestern. Northwestern had 58-mile-an-hour winds when the game started. And people were kicking field goals from the 25-yard line, and they couldn't even hit the crossbar. So you knew heading into that game in Northwestern that there was not going to be a ton of offense. So for all these people that are saying Ohio State struggled so bad against Northwestern, Michigan looked like such a better team, put Michigan in the same weather situation that Ohio State had, and we would see basically the same thing where Ohio State would put up 50 points on Rutgers, and Michigan would barely score 20. The weather played a factor in how poorly Ohio State played. And that was honestly the worst game that Ohio State has played all season. They still won by 14 points. That goes to show you how dominant Ohio State's been from start to finish this year.
They're dominant, but they've also played a lot of cupcakes too.
You can say that about any college team.
The thing that Ohio State has going for it.
I'm a guy that I think Michigan's going to beat Ohio State when they play each other. But I'm just saying all the colleges play some cupcake games.
Yeah, the thing that hurts Ohio State is I shouldn't say the thing that hurts Ohio State. The thing that helps Ohio State is the four best teams in the Big Ten are from their division. And if you look at what they did against Penn State, they outscored Penn State 28-0 in the fourth quarter and beat Penn State by 24 points. They played Michigan State, who when they played Michigan State, I believe Michigan State was 3-1 at the time that Ohio State played Michigan State, beat them 48-6. I mean, and then they have Ohio State's got, I believe, Illinois in a couple weeks too, who's leading the Big Ten West. So in conference, Ohio State has the best teams in the Big Ten. And when they've played those teams, they've handled them very easily.
Oh, what do you guys think about Tennessee? You think Tennessee can still, if they win out, still have a chance to get in the college football playoff?
Alabama's the key. Because Alabama's
Alabama would get in over a one-loss.
But here's the problem though. Alabama's a 2-loss team that's still going to be in the SEC championship game.
That's crazy to me.
Tennessee is a 1-loss team that's not going to be in the SEC championship game because they're in the same division as Georgia. So if Alabama goes into that SEC championship game and beats Georgia, okay? So now you have Georgia with 1 loss, you have Tennessee with 1 loss, you have Bama with 2 losses. Somebody's going to lose that Michigan-Ohio State game. So then one of those teams is going to have 1 loss. And then TCU still has to play, I want to say, I can't remember. They have to play somebody really good in the Big 12 yet. So TCU could still end up losing that game, or they could still end up losing the Big 12 title game. Alabama can sneak into the college football playoffs with 2 losses if they win that SEC championship game. And the sad part is, I'm not going to put it past them. Because for whatever reason, Nick Saban always finds a way to win.
Yeah, they always find a way to, regroup, and they figure out a way to get a big win.
And this is I've never really felt this way in the past, but this is the one year where I don't want to see any conference championship games be played. Just because you're going to have that scenario with Alabama where they have 2 losses, they're still a top 10 team, but they don't deserve to be in the college football playoff conversation. And yet, if they find a way to beat Georgia for that one time they're going to see them, they may find a way to get in and kick somebody else out that deserves to be in more than them. I think they should just go straight rankings. If you're ranked in the top 8 or the top 6, whatever it is, you 6 teams are in the college football playoffs and just be done with it. Be done with the whole
They shouldn't be
conference
in the top
championship
10.
games and everything.
Alabama, as far as I'm concerned, shouldn't even be in the top 10. They've lost 2 games.
You know why they are in the top 10, though? They lost to 2 teams that were ranked in the top 10. And both of their losses were on the road. They lost at number 10 LSU, and they lost at number 3.
I don't feel like to be in the top 4, but I see them in the top 10.
And they almost lost to Texas and a few others, but
the Texas game was also on the road too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say they're in the top 10. I just don't think they're in the top 4. I don't think Clemson should have ever been in the top 4. But
well, it looks like Alabama's dynastic run has come to an end. I guess we can all agree on that. I just don't. I don't see Alabama doing much this year. I just don't see it. But Dustin's right. The NCAA is gonna find a way to put Alabama in there because at the end of the day, ultimately, it's all about which university can make the NCAA the most money, and Alabama ranks up there.
You're right on that. But look at the rest of the conferences too, though. Outside of TCU, who's undefeated right now, is there anybody else in the Big 12 that's going to get college football playoff consideration?
No.
And if TCU loses the Big 12 title game, that takes care of that. The Pac-12 has USC and Oregon. If one of those teams loses in the championship game, that kicks them out. But do you honestly think the winner of that Pac-12 title game is going to get playoff implications? Probably not, because the Pac-12 is a weak conference. It's literally the Big 10 and the SEC, which is where all the playoff conversations are going to come from. And you're going to have one team from the Big 10 make it, which is going to be the winner of the Ohio State-Michigan game. You're going to have one team or 2 teams from the SEC make it, because I think Tennessee is going to be in no matter what at this point. It's because they don't have to play the SEC championship game. And realistically, now that Clemson lost, you could really see Ohio State and 3 SEC teams in the playoffs.
I was going to say I wouldn't be surprised if there's 3 SEC teams in that playoff.
I wouldn't either.
And 1 Big 10 team. I said that last week before Georgia beat Tennessee. I told you I could see all 3 of them teams being in the top 4. Do you think it was just Georgia's defense, or but this way, do you think if they played again, Tennessee can make that a better game if Tennessee and Georgia had to play each other another time?
Can they make the adjustments? I don't know. Georgia is just a well-coached team, and they pride themselves on defense. And that's where they're so good. And that's because of Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart is a defensive specialist. He knows defense really well. And that's how Georgia can beat you with their defense. But they also have enough offensive firepower, too, with Stinson Bennett and, that tight end of theirs, who I think is really good. Georgia just has playmakers on both sides of the field. So Georgia is clearly a number 1 team to me. They're the team to beat, not only in the SEC, but they're the team to beat in college football. That's the way I see it.
The way I see it is, I think the moment was too big for Hendon Hooker. But at the same time, if you play that game in Tennessee, I think you have a different result. Just because they found a way to beat Alabama at Tennessee. And at that point, Alabama was the number 1 ranked team in the country when that game was played. So obviously that game wasn't too big for Hendon Hooker, and that game was at home. I just think it had to do with the venue where they played at. You play that game on a neutral site, or if you play that game in Tennessee, I think the results are completely different.
Yeah, I think it's a lot better game. I'm not going to say Tennessee would beat them, but I think they'd have a better chance of beating them.
And here's another thing too. Hendon Hooker is hearing his name being mentioned as a Heisman hopeful, and it's a lot of pressure on this man's shoulders. And that was a big game for them, having to go into Georgia in a hostile environment, playing on the road. Yes, that was huge for him, but also there was talks about him being a potential Heisman Trophy winner. I think all the Heisman conversations kind of faded out after that loss. I think that was the game he had to win to solidify his status as a Heisman Trophy winner. I think once he lost this game, that all went out the window. But I think he had that in the back of his mind as well. You can't tell me a young guy like Hendon Hooker had that in the back of his mind while playing with a lot of emotions out there.
Well, I guess if you're going to say that, though, who do you think has the better shot to win the Heisman at this point?
Bo Nix.
Bryce Young played like absolute garbage against LSU. I think Bryce Young took his name out of the Heisman based on how he played against LSU. Yeah. CJ Stroud did not play that good against Northwestern. Even though Hendon Hooker played bad, he's still the Heisman favorite because of what he's done up until this game. And no one's going to hold it against him losing to the defending national champions, losing at Georgia, and losing to probably the best defensive team in the country. No one's going to hold that against him. Now, if he comes out next week and has another clunker, then I think you can have more of an argument on it. But I don't think anyone's going to hold this loss against him just because it was against Georgia. And realistically, this was the first time that you can honestly say that Georgia was an underdog in probably 4 years. Yeah. Just because nobody was really talking about Georgia coming into the game. All the talk was about Tennessee and how well they've been playing, and Tennessee being the #1 team in the country. And I think kind of Georgia took that a little personal, knowing that they are still an undefeated team. They are still the national champions, and yet I think they felt that a lot of the NCAA committee overlooked them for the body of work they've done, and I think they just kind of used that as motivation to take it out on Tennessee a little bit.
Yeah, I think Hooker's still up there for Heisman just because all the other candidates have had a bad game, at least one bad game or a couple bad games as well. So it'd be different if there was another candidate out there that just had been killing it and hadn't struggled in a game. Stroud struggled in one or two, like Dustin has said. So I think Hooker still has a good shot at getting a Heisman. I ain't gonna lie. I think Hooker's going to be. I think he's going to be real good in the NFL. I think he has he's one of the guys. If Colts get a top pick or get up there to close top 10 pick, I hope maybe we be a guy. Hooker be a guy I'd like to get.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be a good NFL quarterback. I think he's going to be one of the better ones out of this draft class. I don't know what Dustin. What you think about C.J. Stroud? How you think he develops in the NFL?
You don't want my opinion on it because every time I give my opinion on it, I get crucified. So I'm just going to give it anyways. I don't think C.J. Stroud pans out. I don't think any quarterback from Ohio State will ever pan out. Can any of you name the last Ohio State quarterback that was in the NFL that had success? And not even success. Any Ohio State quarterback that actually lasted in the NFL beyond 5 years.
Oh, no, I agree with you. Because
do you know the last quarterback from Ohio State that lasted more than 6 years in the NFL was Craig Krenzel. And he was an 11-year veteran that was a backup his entire career. You look at Braxton Miller, you look at Troy Smith, Dwayne Haskins, Cordell Jones, Justin Fields has a chance to do something, but he's still only in his second year. Outside of that, all these Ohio State quarterbacks come into the league with these gaudy numbers because they have so much talent in college. But once they get to the NFL, they can't cut it. And I kind of see C.J. Stroud being in a similar situation where you're blessed to have one of the most talented rosters in college. So obviously you're going to put up the numbers you put up. But the moment you're drafted in the NFL, the team that you're going to is not going to have that kind of talent. And a lot of times those Ohio State quarterbacks show their lack of overall skill set because they're not used to playing with a team that's in rebuild mode. They're not used to playing with a team that doesn't have the top talent at all the positions.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because I don't think you hear a lot of these people say Stroud's is the best quarterback, going to be the first quarterback taken in the draft, and I don't see it. I like Hooker better. I think Bryce Young's will do better than CJ Stroud as well.
Yeah,
look at the NFL landscape right now, and go through every single team that has a starting quarterback. How many of these teams have a quarterback that has come from either a small college or a college that isn't loaded on offense? Russell Wilson came from North Carolina State and Wisconsin. Neither one of them has a loaded offense. Lamar Jackson came from Louisville. Not a loaded offense. Derek Carr came from Fresno State. Not a loaded offense. Tannehill, Texas A&M. Jared Goff and Aaron Rodgers came from California. Zach Wilson, BYU. I mean, every quarterback for Ben Roethlisberger, yeah, he came from Miami of Ohio. Like, you look at the NFL, Josh Allen, Wyoming. I mean, I would say probably 24 to 25 of the starting quarterbacks in this league came from colleges where they didn't have the most explosive offenses. They didn't have the firepower that some of these other teams do. So they had to learn to be a great quarterback. Right. And the ones that have learned to be a great quarterback in college are typically the ones that have the most success once they get drafted, because they've had to work their way up to be where they are, as opposed to coming into a situation where they're just gifted with the best overall talented team.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, if you if you look, even Aaron Rodgers came from what, Cal?
Yep.
He played in the junior college before that, right?
Yep.
Yes.
I mean, Andrew Luck came from Stanford, but when Andrew Luck was there, who did he have for wide receivers? He had nobody for wide receivers. He had Toby Gerhart in the backfield, and other than that, he had nobody else really to throw to, and he ended up turning himself into a great quarterback.
Yep. Yeah, if the Colts would have protected him, he'd still be a great quarterback.
And I mentioned that in the video earlier. And Frank Reich might still have a job.
Well, if Andrew Luck was still playing, I believe Frank Reich still has a job, because the Colts wouldn't be as bad as we were this year.
Would he still be playing, though? Because wouldn't he be close to like 40 at this point? Because didn't he retire in, 2014 at like...
Well, that's true. It's been a while.
30 years old?
It's been a while since he's retired.
Yeah, it was like 2014 or 2015. He retired at like 30 or 31, so he'd be 37, 38 right now.
Oh, yeah, he is around the same age as Aaron Rodgers, huh? Damn, I didn't realize that.
I'm not going to put that off.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Okay. I think I just read
14 of these.
14 of these?
I didn't realize he was that old.
He's 33.
Yeah, 33. So, I mean, even at 33, his best days would be well behind him at this point.
He's 33 career end. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, the Colts would have definitely been a lot better if he wouldn't have. That all wouldn't have happened. You had him the last few years. I don't know. I've been calling for Frank Reich. I figured Frank Reich had been fired before today, just the way the seasons went. Especially
he's been on the hot seat.
Well, when you go fire your offensive coordinator last week, that was just a scapegoat, because he didn't call the plays. Frank Reich called the plays. But that's one problem they kind of have now, is you fired your offensive coordinator last week. Now you fire Frank Reich, and then you bring in an interim coach. Now you have nobody on your staff that's ever called plays, but one guy who's your quarterback coach, and he hasn't even called plays in the NFL. He called plays in the CFL.
Do you think because of this situation, the NFL maybe changes the hiring process to allow coaches to potentially block coordinators from interviewing for different positions? Because you can say the same thing with the Rams now that Kevin O'Connell and Wes Hill have gone to Minnesota to be the head coach and the offensive coordinator over there. The Rams' offense has gone downhill. Matt LaFleur lost Luke Getsy and Nathaniel Hackett in Green Bay. Their offense has gone downhill in Green Bay. Frank Reich lost Nick Sirianni and the other guy that's in Philadelphia. Their offense has gone downhill. Those coaches are a prime example that they're only as good as what their offensive coordinators and assistant coaches are. So with situations like this, do you think the NFL will allow more teams to kind of block specific coordinators from interviewing for a job if the head coach feels that the team's going to suffer because of it?
Oh, I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if maybe they try to do something like that, because the NFL is all about scoring, so they want these offenses to stay good.
Yeah, in this modern era of football, they want high-flying offenses.
I just don't know if legally you could do that.
I don't think you can block somebody from interviewing for a head coaching job.
Yeah.
But when it came to Kevin O'Connell and he got that head coaching job, he brought the Rams quarterback coach with him to be the offensive coordinator. I could see something happening where, let's just say Kevin O'Connell interviews for a job, gets the head coaching job. I could see the NFL saying, yeah, you can't take like somebody else's assistants with you. You have to find your own assistant from like college or whatever.
Yeah, you have to either find somebody that don't have a job or some. And that also gives. That's also a way, if you do something like that, that gives some of these younger guys a chance to get in the NFL as a coach, as a coordinator or something, and learn.
And you can give all these other guys too, like internal promotions where you go from a quarterback coach to an offensive coordinator, which is really your next step to becoming a head coach.
Yeah. And actually, I like that because I think in the long run, it can make coaching better because you got guys that are been in the league for 3 or 4 years or more and then getting a head coaching job instead of some of these guys that get a head coaching job like right out of the gate with no NFL experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like Cliff Kingsbury, I still don't know how he got that job and still has it.
He got that job because of what Patrick Mahomes did at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why he got that job.
Well, that's why a lot of them guys, some of them guys got jobs just because they knew Sean McVay.
and the other reason why Kingsbury still has that job is there's still outside hope in that organization if Kyler Murray decides not to come back next year, that Kingsbury's going to try to lure Baker Mayfield there. And I guess him and Baker Mayfield worked very well together in college before Mayfield ultimately went to Oklahoma. So there's hope that if Mayfield goes to Arizona, Kingsbury can kind of untap some of that potential that Mayfield has never really shown.
Because Mayfield was the starter, then got hurt, and then right, and then Mahomes came in, and then
and then Mayfield transferred out.
Yep, I thought I remembered that right.
Yeah, and then Mayfield was actually putting up like really good numbers at Texas Tech before he got hurt, and that's why there's kind of that outside hope where if Kyler Murray does decide to not return, Mayfield's on a 1-year deal. If Kingsbury goes and gets Mayfield, will Mayfield kind of be the quarterback that everyone finally expected him to be with Cliff Kingsbury?
With that being said, do you think maybe Baker ends up in Arizona as a backup?
I thought he was going to end up in Arizona this year. I didn't think he was going to go to Carolina. Once everything came out with Kyler Murray and his uncertainty if he wanted to play or not, or his uncertainty with the contract situation, I thought Arizona was going to just try to move him and bring Mayfield in to begin with. I was honestly shocked to see Mayfield go to Carolina, and then finding out that Murray still doesn't have that extension, I kind of looked at that. I'm like, Arizona was a playoff team last year with Kyler Murray. They still have basically a playoff roster.
Yeah.
Bring Baker Mayfield in for a year and see what you can do with him. If you do well enough to make the playoffs with him, lock Mayfield up for another couple of years and kind of build around that.
I know, like in Carolina, they've already announced that you're muted, Judge, but Carolina already announced that they're going to start Walker again this week, even though they had played Baker some during the second half of that game.
See, that's another situation too. You traded for Baker Mayfield. I understand that he has struggled, but you should know that PJ Walker is also not your answer. You should know that Sam Darnold is not your answer. Roll with Baker Mayfield the rest of this year, get through this year, and then figure things out after that.
Well, and my thing with Baker is, yeah, he didn't play great, but he was in a new system. Give the guy a chance to get comfortable in that system. And how many different systems has he been in since he's been in the NFL the last 4 or 5 years?
4 different systems in 5 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I'm Carolina.
And the one time that he was in the same system for more than one season, he took Cleveland to the playoffs and almost beat Kansas City in the playoffs. He needs to be with a system for more than one season to actually be comfortable. And you've seen it every year with him. His rookie year, he was terrible. His next season, he was better, but he was still terrible just because a new coordinator. Year number 3, he was better, but still not great because of a new system. And then year number 4, he had that same system that he had in year 3 and played very well and got Cleveland into the playoffs. And then he had another new system after that. Like, it's
Cleveland gave up.
Honestly, in year 5 last year with Cleveland, if he wouldn't have got hurt, I think he'd had a better season. He was out there playing hurt.
That's why I'm saying they gave up on him because he was.
And you look at Kirk Cousins too. Kirk Cousins has had 7 different offensive coordinators the last 7 years.
In my opinion, I think Kirk Cousins is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I know a lot of people say I'm crazy when I say that.
He showed it last year. He had
Yeah.
35 touchdowns and 7 interceptions last year. He's got less interceptions than Aaron Rodgers this year. And he's had 7 different systems the last 7 years. That's a lot for a quarterback to overcome. He's just been fortunate with being in Minnesota that every time the system changes, he still has the same weapons with him. He still has Dalvin Cook. He still has Adam Thielen. He still has guys like Justin Jefferson. So, like, a lot of the players are familiar to him. It's just a different terminology versus Baker Mayfield. It seemed like every time he had a new system, he had new players to work with also.
Our injuries, he was
exactly. That's why Cousins has at least been fortunate where every time they switch a system, those players are still there. So everybody's learning that new system together as opposed to Cousins is thrown in there with like 20 different players that he's got to learn it on his own. And then once he starts to get comfortable with all these players, another new system comes in and another group of players comes in.
Well, real quick before we get out of here, what do you guys think about this Colts hiring Jeff Saturday as the intern head coach?
Well, he has 0 experience at both the collegiate and professional level. I think this goes back to what we were saying earlier, that it's sometimes who you know. And, you know, Jeff Saturday used to play for the Colts. He's won the Super Bowl with the Colts. You know, he has familiarity and ties to the organization. But again, he doesn't have the experience. And now you don't have a play caller because you fired your offensive coordinator. So, I mean, this is a tough task for Jeff Saturday. I'm interested to see how it all plays out. But, I mean, I'm not so sure about this move. We'll have to wait and see.
I guess the thing to me is I think this was more of a cultural type of thing where you have guys like Jonathan Taylor that says they want out of Indianapolis, and a lot of these star players say they want Indianapolis now because of the situation. You bring in a guy like Jeff Saturday who knows the organization. He knows what it takes to keep this organization successful. He knows how much respect a lot of these people get when you have success in that organization. I think this is more of a cultural shock for the organization to bring in a guy that has been with the organization for as long as he was, had the amount of success he did, and just kind of try to save this season to get Jonathan Taylor to stay, to get some of these other people to stay. So then when the new coach comes in, that new coach still has Jonathan Taylor. That new coach still has a lot of these other people that are asking to be traded now because of the situation. I don't think he's the answer, and I don't think he expects to be the answer. I think it's more of, let's get somebody here that knows this organization to kind of get everybody on the same page before we head into the offseason.
Yeah, I don't think it's as bad a move as some people think. And one reason why I think a lot of people don't forget about this, he's a consultant for the Colts, so he's been around the team. He's been around the team the last couple of years. He knows all these players. So I kind of agree with Dustin. They brought him in for a cultural move, and he knows the play. He knows everybody, so everybody respects him there. Because it ain't like he hasn't been around this Colts team at all. He's been a consultant for the Colts. So he goes there and talks to these guys and stuff. So I think that'll help. And at this point, what you really got to lose? You're not going to make the playoffs. So why does it really matter if you have him as the interim coach or you bring up Gus Bradley as the interim coach? Because neither one of them, in my opinion, are going to be probably going to be the head coach next year anyway.
I guess the thing with Saturday too, Chris, and you might be able to attest to this also, one of the Colts' biggest strengths last year is their biggest weakness this year, and that's the offensive line.
Yep.
Jeff Saturday is a Hall of Fame offensive lineman. You bring this guy in, the first thing he's going to do is work with that offensive line. The first thing he's going to do is get these guys to block the way they're capable of blocking, which will start to set things up for Jonathan Taylor again. Once that gets set up for Jonathan Taylor, then you'll start to see that passing game come together a little more than what it's been, because without Jonathan Taylor, this offense is terrible. When Jonathan Taylor was running the way he was last year, the Colts offense was not that bad. And it's just amazing how poor that offensive line has played this year when you look at how good it was last year. So I think even that's probably why they made this move too, because they wanted somebody that could work with the offensive line to kind of get them back to the level that they're capable of.
Yeah, but I agree. I think that's the two reasons that they brought him in. And I mean, the offensive line's been terrible, and that's where Colts spent most of their money at. And Sam Ellinger got killed yesterday. He got sacked 9 times, and he could have got sacked 12 if it wasn't just he was able to avoid a couple of them with his feet. But I mean, even on 3-step drops, he was getting, by the time he'd get his foot in the ground for his third step, he was getting hit. Which I thought he was struggling yesterday too, because you're playing Bill Belichick defense, and young quarterbacks usually struggle against Belichick's defense. But if our offensive line don't protect, it don't matter who you have back there, running back or quarterback, if they don't make some kind of a hole for the running back and give the quarterback at least a couple seconds.
I'm going to compare the Jeff Saturday situation to kind of what the Wisconsin Badgers are going through with Jim Leonhard. You have a Wisconsin Badgers team who was supposed to have this great offensive line, that was supposed to have a really good defense, and that was supposed to be contending for the Big Ten title. Well, they're 5-4 right now, and they can still make the Big Ten championship game because they're only 1 game behind Illinois in their own division. But since they got Jim Leonhard, they're 3-1. Jim Leonhard played for the Badgers for 4 years. He knows what the Badger culture is. He knows what it takes to be successful in Wisconsin. And since the moment he took over as the interim head coach, the Badgers are looking like the Badgers that everyone expected them to look like. I think the same thing can happen with Jeff Saturday. You bring this guy in. Yes, it's probably too little, too late at this point, but the Colts could be one of those teams that final 5-6 games of the season that nobody wants to play, because they could start to look like the team that everyone thought the Colts could look like, and then they could be a playoff spoiler towards the end of the year, depending on who they play.
Yeah, because if they can get the offensive line together, our defense has been playing good. Our defense isn't the problem. We usually don't give up I think average like 20 points a game that they give up, if that. It's just when we can't score over 20, we can't score 15 points a game. It's been bad. Sports Judge, you got any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Thank you, Dustin, for coming on with us tonight. It was a great show. We appreciate having you on. It's always a pleasure, my friend. So I want to thank you, and then I want to thank all our viewers out there. Without you guys, none of this is possible. So thank you guys for taking the time out of your night and devoting your time and investing your night to spend with great stuff. Great stuff, guys. We killed it again. Great show.
Stat Guy, you got any final thoughts, man?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are interested or not, but I will be doing college basketball play-by-play tomorrow for Division III UW Oshkosh. Okay. It will be my first play-by-play game at the college level. I've done a couple high school games, but if you guys are interested, I can send you that link, and you guys can tune in if you want to.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
send me the link. Shoot it over to me.
What time?
It starts at 7:00 Central. It'll be for UW Oshkosh, who is my alma mater. They enter the season number 2 in the country for Division III.
Nice.
Yeah, I was watching some college basketball earlier today. I was watching my Hoosiers play, and then I watched a little bit of Ball State, the college here where I live at, play. Ball State won by like 60 points or something. It was crazy, but you know how the schedule is at the beginning of the season for college basketball. Over some of these teams, you got bigger schools playing smaller schools. Duke got their first win without Coach K tonight. And I'll be honest, I forgot all about college basketball starting up today until I was getting ready. I was preparing stuff for the sports betting show, and I was like, "Oh shit, there's all kinds of college basketball today."
Mm-hmm. It's back.
Yeah, Dustin, send me that link. I'll definitely check it out. I want to thank Dustin for coming on, but please hit that subscribe button, everybody, on YouTube at Gonzo Sports Room, at the Sports Judge, and at the All Sports All Plays Network as well. Like and follow us on Facebook at Gonzo Sports Room and at the All Sports All Plays Network. Sports Judge, you don't have a Sports Judge Facebook account, do you?
Yes, I do.
You do? Well, why don't you ever promote it?
The Sports Judge fan page.
Why don't you ever promote it?
I do. I do. I'll promote it right here. You guys can follow me on my fan page on Facebook, The Sports Judge. Find it.
You already ever talked about You only ever talk about the YouTube, so that's the one I always
yeah,
bring
I
up.
got the YouTube channel too. You guys can subscribe to it and check out more content that I put out there.
All right. No, we appreciate everybody watching. Like Judge said, without you guys, this wouldn't be possible. We'll be back for another episode of Gonzo and the Sports Judge on Wednesday at 11. Tomorrow, tomorrow's Tuesday. At 1 p.m. Eastern, I have the ASAP Afternoon Blitz. 3 o'clock is Easy Money, a sports betting show, and I believe that's the only shows I have tomorrow.
Got baseball in the morning.
Oh, yeah, baseball in the morning. I'm glad you said that. 9 a.m. in the morning, around the bases with myself and stat guy Dustin Reese. Oh, yeah, I only got 3 shows tomorrow. Hell, that's a light day for me. Considering I've done like four in a row tonight. So, hey, it gives me something to do other than just sitting here not doing anything.
Gotta keep grinding.
All right. Well, we appreciate everybody watching. Like Dustin said, we'll see you guys tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern for Around the Bases, our baseball show. And get back to this video. They got so many videos on here, it's hard to find them. All right. Well, thank you guys. We thank everybody for watching. We will see you guys on Wednesday. Everybody have a good night.
Good night.
Whole sports all plays. Yeah. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. Sport all plays, they working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports all plays.